Become a wealth creator today. Text VISIT to 800-454-1184 to schedule your 15-minute call with Eric and his team. That's VISIT to 800-454-1184.
What are some of the main things anyone approaching retirement should know? Well, we have a solid list to walk you through today. We're so glad you joined us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. He is located right here in Silicon Valley, and he has been helping people like you have remarkable retirements for the past 30 years. So he's here today to talk to you about what you need to be doing so you can have that successful retirement. Eric is a certified financial planner. Here's that phone number, 800-454-1184. You can call for a complimentary appointment. You can text the word VISIT if you want a complimentary appointment, 800-454-1184. Also, transform your retirement worries into confidence and get this toolbox that we talk about every week on our show. It includes Eric's book, plus some educational materials. All you have to do is text toolbox to 800-454-1184 and find us online anytime at wealthcreatorradio.com. And Eric, hello to you.
Hey, Luann. It's kind of past tax time, but not really for most people in California since we all got extensions. So some people did them, some people didn't. But, now it's time to be saying, oh, okay, so, well, that happened, right? And what should you be doing differently? How can you fix that for next year? How can you make it, less bad? You can't get rid of taxes, but at least if we can minimize them, this is the time of year to be doing that. So I know most people are probably sick of looking at taxes or looking at their tax return, but really this is the time to be going, hey, well, okay, this happened and this happened because of this. So what changes can I make, to make things get a lot better? So, that's one of the things that I think this time of year people need to be kind of focused on.
Yeah. And I love it that, you've been talking about this for a long time. In fact, for many, many years. Congratulations, Eric. This is our 300th show together on the radio. So we've been doing this show now for 7 years. Can you believe that?
Wow. Yeah, that is a long time.
I know it. So excited that we hit this milestone. Now, our producer wanted me to bring this up. Show 400, 100 shows from now. Do you know when that'll be? March 29th, 2025. Okay.
Wow.
So that's a couple more years from now. And how about this? Show 1000 will be September 27th, 2036. And if I remember right, you said something about that was your goal to help 1,001 people retire by 2031. Think of how many more people.
Yeah, we'd have even more retired by then.
Yeah.
So, geez, that would be pretty cool.
I know. What do you think you'll be doing then? 2036. That's kind of hard to think about. 15 years practically.
Yeah, well, hopefully as long as they keep riding and doing some fun adventures, that's the big one.
Yeah.
So,
helping people get into that retirement where they can do all the things that they dream of. So that's what we want to talk about now. As you inch closer and closer to your career, your retirement list gets longer and longer because there's so many boxes you have to check off to make sure you're prepared. So, Eric, tell us what's the first question you ask someone who wants to know if they're ready to retire?
Well, often it's, what are you going to do? It sounds kind of weird, but, it's not a financial question, but yeah, I mean, you do kind of have to know, well, what are you planning on doing in retirement? Are you, what, are you going to be traveling? Or are you going to be volunteering? What kind of things have you thought of? And then, of course, the other big one is, do you know how much you spend right now? Because when you have 7 days a weekend, not 2, you have the capacity to spend a lot more money. So
true.
So you do definitely have to kind of focus on that a lot more because that's going to be one of those things where, once you have those times and that free period to do stuff, and obviously travel costs money, lots of things cost money. Now some stuff doesn't, right? Doing stuff around the house, doing projects, some of those may not cost as much. So looking at all that stuff, that's kind of like usually where we start. And then, do they have an income plan, right? Do they have that set up? And lots of times the answer is, oh, no, not yet.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, all right, we have in front of us a long list we're going to go through of things you need to consider before you retire. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, obviously, but a couple of things we want to touch on is that you need to have a retirement goal age, lengthen your long-term plan, mind the retirement income gap, then potentially reduce your tax bill. So let's first talk about that last one. What are some ways that we can do that, Eric?
Well, reducing your tax bill, there's definitely a lot of things you can look at. One of the things is, it sounds counterintuitive, but to do Roth conversions, so pay taxes now to lower your taxes over your lifetime. So really what we care more about here for my clients is how do I get their lowest tax over their lifetime, not over 1 year. Usually when you're looking at tax software or accountant or somebody like that, they're just looking at how to save you taxes today, this year. But that decision may cause you even more taxes over your lifetime. So, yeah, that's one of the big ones to be looking at. And, there's also just, having that retirement income, plan. That's really what all that kind of talks about, is having that, that age, how long is that money going to last? And what's that gap? If you got pension, that's great, but most of us don't. So, okay, you get some Social Security, which is, speaking of 2036, that's when, that's supposed to having issues where they're not supposed to be able to pay 20% of their bills. So what's going to happen? So on top of that, you're going to need to have some money on your own, right? Some of those savings. That's why you were doing those 401ks, IRAs, and all that stuff. So you need to have a plan of how to get that money back out. And can you guarantee some of that money to have some income for life? So that way you can build up your own pension plan, and that's one of the things that we really do here at Heckman Financial. So yeah, like you said earlier, we built this great toolbox as a digital toolbox. It's got, will your money last as long as you do? Are you paying too much in taxes? These are some quick little reads that we have posted up there. My Worry Less Wealth book, if you want to set a time, all of that's sitting there on that digital toolbox. Again, all you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or you can go online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And we just thank you so much for joining us every week. Eric is here to help you create wealth in retirement. That's his goal for you. And he has been here for 7 years telling you how you can do it and guiding you about retirement. So we're so happy you joined us today. This is Wealth Creator Radio. I'm Luann Fulmer. So a couple more issues we need to have an eye on as we are approaching retirement. Obviously, planning for inflation. We're experiencing that right now. But then also planning for healthcare costs and long-term care. So tell us, ways we can tackle those issues.
Yeah, well, first of all, I've been doing this for 30 years, not 7 years on the radio. Well, you said 7 years on the radio.
Excuse me. You're right. Yeah, we got to say that.
But no, for inflation, yeah. I mean, I met with somebody recently, and they had this pretty elaborate spreadsheet, and like a lot of engineers do. And I noticed, I was like, this is the same income every year for the next 20 years. Oh. That's not going to work. You need to have some, things are going to get more expensive over time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you definitely have to have that inflation built in. You have to realize that you're going to be paying for that healthcare out of your own pocket, which, a lot of times I focus on people's take home pay because that's the easy one. That's the one you're living on now. But in retirement, that take home pay, now all of a sudden you have to pay that medical on your own, because usually, you pay that out of your paycheck before, you get your take home pay, right?
Right.
And then the big one, which everybody, it's kind of like, the dieting and exercise and, a lot of things that people don't like to do. They don't like to talk about long-term care, but unfortunately the reality is, last stat I saw, 70% of everybody, there's 70% chance odds of you needing some sort of long-term care. It was 50% when I started in the business 30 years ago. So that can cost $100,000 to $150,000 a year, and that could go for several years. So that could really eat up a lot of money. So there are some better ways than just traditional long-term care insurance. There's some great new products out there, and again, that's something, if you wanted to set up a time to talk to us, that's one of the things that we can go over. We can look at those things and say, okay, how do I have a plan? How do I create that blueprint to worry less wealth, where we have all those things looked at, that income plan, that investment plan, tax, healthcare, legacy. Those are the 5 areas of the blueprint to worry less wealth. And that's something we create for people. We're not even charging a fee right now. So again, the best way to set up a time to talk about that, obviously you can go to look at the toolbox, but if you want to just set up a time and talk, we can set up a 15 to 30 minute phone call. All you have to do is text the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit, 800-454-1184 or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And Eric Heckman will be right back with lots more about retirement.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. Take his checklist challenge. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. See if you've got it right. Take the checklist challenge today. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, you're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. You know, Eric has done this for over 30 years now. And when I say done this, I mean helping people retire. In 2020, Eric, more than half of all Americans were covered by some type of life insurance. So a good number of people see life insurance as a really useful tool to protect their families and their loved ones. But what I want to address today, Eric, is not really do I need life insurance, but rather, do I need life insurance for my retirement?
Yeah, well, life insurance has been always kind of boiled down to two things. Do you owe someone, and do you love someone? So lots of times when you're starting out, it's you owe a bunch on a mortgage, right? So you want to have enough to cover that mortgage in case you're gone and for the rest of your family. Maybe your mortgage is paid down a lot more. The kids are grown, so it's less dependent on you being around. So that's when people start going, oh well, do I still need it? What should I be doing? Well, there is some big changes that happen when somebody passes away during retirement. I mean, if you're a married couple, and one of you passes away, you not only lose that smaller of the two Social Security checks, you also flip from being married to single filing on the income taxes. And so I had one client that literally, after his wife died, he lost some of her income, some other stuff. So he made $20,000 less, Oof. But his tax bill was actually $20 more. So it was almost, his tax bill was almost no different. It was almost a dead even, break even type of thing on the taxes. But he made $20,000 less. It's like, well, hold it. How can you make so much less and have the same tax bill? Well, Again, you're no longer married. Now you're single filing, so all those brackets go up way faster. So, that's where sometimes the life insurance can kick in. The other thing, too, is a lot of the modern policies now, finally, in California, it took them a long time, have long-term care benefits. So life insurance may not actually be about you dying. It might be more about you needing care and how to pay for it and not using up all those dollars that your surviving spouse may need for their retirement after you're gone. So it can be a very useful tool for retirement now.
Yeah, I love that life insurance policies can be used for long-term care benefits. So to figure that out, if that's something maybe you might want to use in retirement, what would be some key questions we should ask ourselves?
Well, like I said, of course, how much do you owe, right? So if you've got a lot of debt, a lot of people nowadays, especially with the tax law being so favorable and when we had interest rates so low, it didn't make sense to pay off that 2.5% or 3% mortgage. Now, if you got a newer one, it may, may really make sense to pay it off. So, so that's one of those things. If you owe a lot, you might need to have that life insurance keeps going just because of one person passes away and you lose that Social Security check. Can the remaining income for the surviving spouse still pay for that mortgage? And often it may not be the case. But then also, in terms of just wealth transfer, I mean, the worst tool in the world is IRAs and 401ks to leave behind because, if you leave that to the next generation, your kids have 10 years to blow that money. I mean, literally they have to spend all that money and pay all the taxes on it. So, you don't necessarily want to be doing that for, leaving those types of assets. Whereas if you can leave life insurance where it's tax free, If you do that tax-free money, it's all theirs. They can do whatever they want with it. So, there's a lot of benefits to having that. Again, you have to be able to figure out, how do I pay for it, right? Where does the money come from to fund it, and what type of policy it is? It can't be group insurance that expires when you quit your job. It can't be term insurance that runs out. And so there's some great new options, but people really need to educate themselves and find out what's out there. So that's something that if you wanted to take advantage of, look at those resources first at the toolbox. Check those out. If you want to set up a time after that, we can definitely talk and help you. But this is probably one of the most critical times, the biggest shifts we've had in the economy in a positive way.
Yes.
So you hear all the bad news. This is a positive. These are some great new options out there, some stuff I haven't seen ever before. So loving it, because we have so many more options for our clients. So again, if you want to get that, you can either text the word toolbox, or you can just leave a message. Both of them would be 800-454-1184. Again, that number is 800-454-1184. Or you can request it directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. So we're talking today about key questions that you should ask yourself to try to see whether or not you still need life insurance in retirement. Now, Eric, a lot of people who are trying to retire or who are retiring probably do have life insurance policies already in place. What should they be thinking about?
Well, are the policies that they own, right? So that's one of the big ones. So like I mentioned earlier there, if it's group insurance or term insurance, term is something that literally is good for a term. Mm-hmm. So if it's a 5-year term, guess what? After 5 years, it goes away. If it's a 20-year term, it goes away after 20 years. Usually those policies, by the way, say you're paying, $100 a month, most of them I find go up 10 times. So that $100 a month may be $1,000 a month after that. And so that's very brutal. And lots of times, unfortunately, I have these phone calls and discussions with people that will reach out to us and say, hey, I've got this policy, it's expiring, I'm 78, what should I get? It's like, not much, because it sadly, a lot of times your health may not be good enough anymore, but also just the cost would be prohibited. That's the hard part is does this make sense for your situation? And so you usually want to have some sort of permanent insurance. You want to have something that's going to be there for the rest of your life. So again, it has to be something that isn't going to run out. If it is a permanent policy and you've had it for a long time, you want to get what they call an in-force illustration, in-force. So meaning the policy is not lapsed, it's in force. And that'll tell you if they run it out from now till age 100, is it going to still be there? Because again, lots of times I have gotten calls with people who have cash value policies that are running out of money in their 80s, and lots of times it was because they saw a policy that was going to earn 7 or 8% every year, and then rates went down to 4, and that changed a lot of things. It was great for your mortgage, but it really was not good for your life insurance. So these are some things that to be thinking about, is how to pay for these, how are you going to keep them going, and then also is it trying to help your surviving spouse more, or is it trying to help the next generation? So there's a lot to be said for when you're doing this planning.
That's what I was going to ask. Are there any other factors we should be thinking about?
Well, the probably the biggest one is the misuse and abuse of life insurance. I would call it, I guess. Some people like to call it the laser fund, or they'll call it LIRP, which is like a life insurance retirement plan, or 7702, which just is just a tax code that talks about life insurance. So they'll do anything to call it something that they don't have to use the words life insurance. So that way they can hide it, disguise it. And what are they hiding for? What are they sheltering for? Why are they making up these cutesy terms to not actually say what it is? It reeks of somebody trying to tell you something that's not and trick you into stuff, right? So be careful if anybody's trying to use those types of, goofy terms. Life insurance can be a great tool. Especially the overfunded, we've used it a lot for clients, where you put extra money in there. You fund it you try to keep the life insurance part actually small, and you try to overfund it and get a bunch of cash value in there. And it can be a great tool that can actually pay a lot of tax-free retirement income. So, there is definitely a great advantage to doing it. But the problem is you usually have to fund it for at least 5 years, and you usually need like a 10-year timeline before you start touching the income. But I've seen people where they say, oh, yeah, I'm going to start it in 2 years or 3 years. Well, it just doesn't have time to build up enough money and work. And why did somebody talk them into that? Well, because they got paid a lot of money. And sadly, that's the only reason. And so life insurance can be a really critical tool. It can make really good sense for long-term care protection. It can, make sense for tax-free income. There's a lot of great things, but again, it has to be part of an overall plan. If it's not, then how are you going to know if it's right for you? So, again, with here at Heckman Financial, we've got this great thing where we've built this blueprint to worry less wealth. We typically charge $1,500, but we've been waiving that for radio listeners and podcast listeners. So again, if you want to take advantage of that, we'll set up a first phone call just to find out what your situation is. And then we'll go from there and we'll actually create that blueprint for you that'll tell you where you are in terms of income planning, investment planning, taxes, healthcare, and legacy. And then we'll know what tools are right for you, what tools are wrong, and where you should be taking action and what things you should not be doing. Once you have that data and that knowledge, then it's so much easier to figure out what you should be doing versus just taking what people say. Now we at least have some evidence to say, oh yeah, this makes sense for my situation. So again, if that's something you want to take advantage of, all you have to do is text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184. Again, text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184, or go online to wealthcreatorradio.com.
Eric will explain what IULs are and how they work, if they could make sense for you. That's all coming up next. So stick around for more of Wealth Creator Radio and Eric Heckman.
Do you know whether your retirement plan has any weak points? Discover ways on giving your financial future the proper tune-up. Simply go online to wealthcreatortoolbox.com to gain a better understanding in taxes, Social Security, and other ways to manage your portfolio.
And that's how it's done.
That's wealthcreatortoolbox.com.
Hi, we're so glad to have you join us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman, who is a well-known speaker and author, and he's here to give you guidance for everything that you do to and then all the way through retirement. He wants to help you worry less. We're talking today about questions that you need to ask yourself to try to determine if you still need life insurance in your retirement years. So, Eric, what we're learning today is that because your financial needs are different in retirement, so are your insurance needs, right?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's, like we talked about earlier, there's things where, and you're talking about, do you owe money? Do you need to cover a mortgage? Do you have young kids? But then, of course, as you're aging and stuff, you don't have, hopefully, those young kids living at home. Hopefully they've got, at least you kicked them out if they had moved out on their own, right? I got 3 sons, so they better not all end up being at my house forever.
Back at your house, yeah.
Yeah, so, but then, there's other things like long-term care, retirement income, just tax-free growth of money. So there's a lot of other reasons that you might need to have the life insurance there that are very different from when you were buying it, say in your 20s, 30s, or 40s.
One of the life insurance options that we often hear about is that indexed universal life, or IULs. So I want to talk about that. Explain to us how it works, please.
The original policies were kind of more like a 30-year fixed mortgage kind of thing. So that's the easier way to kind of show the differences. So when you're talking about whole life was where you actually invested in that company. So, if you, like I started my career with New York Life. So if you owned a policy with New York Life, you literally owned kind of a little piece of that company, and you were dependent on them for paying you dividends and giving you the money. Then in the 80s, E.F. Hutton, if you remember, when they talk, everybody listens.
Everybody listens, yes.
So if you're old enough to know that commercial, they actually came out with first universal lives. And so these were much more like a variable rate mortgage where things were now, kind of separated out more. With universal life, you have this cost of insurance that you see, you have the earnings that you see, and it's a lot more visible. But that was in the Jimmy Carter days, the high interest rates. And then once those rates dropped, everybody's like, well, that's not working so good. And then they had variable life, which was in the stock market. But again, you're trying to make this money be more guaranteed and grow. So those had so much fees and costs that, finally everybody realized that indexing was the way to go. And so the big difference here is the universal life part. It means is you see the fees, you see the costs. So everything's kind of broken out so you can really see like how much is the cost of insurance, how much is the cost of running the policy. That's literally every annual statement shown to you, for what all those costs are. But the big difference here is instead of your money getting a set rate from the insurance company or being based on the insurance company's performance, now they're making it off some stock market index. So of course, like S&P 500 is the main index that most people use. So say if the cap was 10%. What that means is they'll pay you anywhere from 0 to 10% if the stock market does that from usually what they call an annual point to point. So if it was June 1st to June 1st the next year, they'll look back over that year. How did that money do? How did that grow? And then they'll pay you anywhere from 0 to 10%. Now, if the market did 11, 12, 15, 20, whatever, you don't get that. You only get
10%. Yeah.
But 10 on something that's guaranteed is pretty dang good, right? So now what happens if it goes the other direction, right? If it goes negative something, well, the neat thing there is you don't lose a dime. You just earn 0, but now you started over, and guess what? That starting point's a lower starting point. Well, typically after the market drops, it usually will rebound eventually. And so, now that you've got locked in that lower number, it's really easy to have a higher percentage gain that next year. Even if the market doesn't come back to where it was, again, that's like a 1-year sprint. It's not a marathon. So you're just looking from year to year to see how your money did. And so, so these can be really good policies to earn some pretty decent money. That's the good part. Obviously has the life insurance aspect too. Don't forget that.
Right.
Right. So, and so typically there's a couple ways that works. One is you have a flat death benefit. So if you started off, say at, a $500,000 death benefit, if you build up $100,000 of cash value, it may still be 500, which means as your cash value grows, you're getting less and less life insurance. The other way is you can do it, your cash value plus your death benefit. And so those kind would be if you had 100,000 of cash value and the death benefit is 500, now it's 6. So, that's one of those things where, again, that's a cost item. If you're buying more insurance, of course, it costs more. So if you're trying to have that death benefit grow, then that may make sense. But if you're trying to get the cash value to grow lots of times you want the life insurance to actually be smaller, which sounds counterintuitive. But basically the government said if you have too much money, because people basically in the 80s were being really abusive of life insurance, they were dumping in tons of money. They dump in like $100,000 into a $5,000 insurance policy at the time that was paying 12%, tax free. Well, that was a pretty good deal. And so, but then the government's like, hold it, if you're dumping $100,000 into a $5,000 policy, this is not life insurance. This is just a tax dodge. So they do have these limits that say, okay, you have to have so much death benefit compared to your cash value. So, again, there's little things, little nuances. What I find is a lot of people who sell these don't tell people these nuances. They don't tell them the pros and cons of how it's designed. And a lot of times they're designing it so they make the most commission for themselves, which, again, is not the thing you want. So you want somebody who's more of a fiduciary advisor, somebody who knows this in and out and can design it for what you're looking for. So, again, that's one of those things that, if you wanted to set up some time to just talk and go over this, see if what some people call the laser fund or life insurance retirement plan or 7702, all these goofy names, it's life insurance, people. It's index universal life insurance. It's, not the super great IUL. It's just a good product, good tool. But again, like everything, it's got its pros and cons. So again, if that's something you want to set up a time and talk, we can go through that and go over that for you to see if it makes sense for your situation. So, if you want to set up a time, all you have to do is text the word visit, 800-454-1184. This could be, virtual, on the phone, whatever. But again, text the word visit, 800-454-1184. Or you can book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com. wealthcreatorradio.com.
And this is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. I'm Luann Fulmer. So you kind of have taken us through, we kind of have a good idea of what's good and bad, but I don't know, you want to go into kind of a list of pros and cons of an indexed universal life insurance policy?
Well, like I said, I mean, they can be really great, but what people forget or, conveniently ignore and don't mention much or whatever terms you want to use. I mean, there's one guy who gave up his insurance license so that way he can have a radio show, print books, talk about life insurance, endlessly, index life insurance. But his whole family's licensed, and then they'll sell you the stuff. But since he has no license, he can say whatever he wants and get away with it. So,
interesting.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're, doing the right thing. I mean, I've seen some of their proposals that they'd had, and I sent it to their compliance at the one company, and they were shocked that they were using these things. And so you got to be careful of how it's being approached. It can be a great tool to build up money, but it takes time. It is not, this is not, some, strike it rich or, meme stock type thing. This is very slow. This is more tortoise than the hare type of thing. So, most of the policies are good after 10 years. You usually need to fund them for at least 5 years, maybe even up to 10. But if you're trying to get money and have great earnings and stuff after 1 or 2 years, the costs are just too much, initially. So the costs get really watered down over time, but there are some upfront costs that happen. And so, again, that's one of those things where it's all about expectations, right? I mean, if you're trying to use a tool that, is not designed. I mean, if you're trying to do 80 miles an hour in a golf cart, good luck, right?
Right.
I mean, you can try all you want. It ain't going to happen. So if you're trying to make this be super high flying, it's not. It's going to be a slow growth type vehicle, but it can be a great tool to build up a lot of tax-free cash and be a really great source to do that. But again, you gotta have somebody who knows what they're doing, not somebody just sold your friends and then they're going to be out of the business in 6 months or, something like that. Somebody who's a fiduciary-based advisor like we are here at Heckman Financial. So, again, if you want to figure out, hey, what is all this life insurance things about? Should I be doing it? Should I be using it? We'll give you all the real story, and then you can decide, hey, is this for me or not? So again, if you want to set up a time to talk, just text the word visit, 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit, 800-454-1184, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Wealth Creator Radio and Eric Heckman will be right back.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. Take his checklist challenge. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. See if you've got it right. Take the checklist challenge today. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, we're so glad to have you join us today. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. He is a well-known speaker and author. He can provide you with some guidance to get you to and through retirement with worry less wealth. That is his goal for you. When you like to worry less, well, that's what this show is all about. Eric explains. Now, right now is a time, Eric, where I'm going to read some questions for you. Okay, we're going to dig into your Wealth Creator Radio mailbag, and then you're going to give us some answers. So these are from retirees. Are you ready for this?
Yep, let's go for it.
You're always ready. Okay. I'm planning on retiring in 3 or 4 years, and I'm thinking really hard about relocating. What are some things to consider as I'm trying to narrow down my options for where to move?
Well, probably the biggest one is, what are you going to do with your house? Are you going to sell it? You get the $500,000 if you're married, or $250,000 capital gain exclusion for single. depending on how long you live there, for a lot of people in the Bay Area, they're way over that, so that you may have a pretty big taxable hit. So that's one thing to be thinking about. One benefit if you're staying in California, the new Prop 19 allows you to move your property tax basis from way back when to any other place in the state, so that can make it nicer if you're trying to move to the foothills or something. Obviously, if you're going to move to a tax-free state like Texas, Nevada, Washington, something like that, then that does play into a lot of things about your financial plan, because you're deferring California tax and then not having to pay it when you take it out. So that can be a big one. And then also, are you going to just rent the house? Are you going to rent where you're going to go to? There's lots of different options. So I would say just kind of get some pros and cons. I mean, one of the interesting things, actually, my neighbor did this. When they sold their house, they booked 5 one-month Airbnbs in different parts of the country. And so they just wanted to figure out where they wanted to live. 2 of them were locations where their kids are living, their adult children. But some weren't. And so, they just wanted to kind of get a feel for it. And I think it's actually almost always a better option if you can to, do a short-term rental or do something for a while before you get to know that neighborhood, because you may think this one area, this one town you want to move to is good, but then once you live there a little bit, you find out the traffic's bad or other things. And so I think it's really good if you can to just, initially rent, just check it out, and then also try to spend some time in all seasons.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, especially if you're leaving the Bay Area where, we complain when it, the 1 or 2 days a year it hits freezing levels and stuff, and the rare days it hits 100. So, if you're going someplace where it's snowing and ice storms, and, I've seen a lot of clients move to other places, and, they're dealing with a lot of weather.
We're digging into Eric's Wealth Creator Radio mailbag. And here's another one. I like how my money has been performing in the markets, but I am starting to get a little bit worried about the risk that I'm taking. Now, this is my life savings. So what are some moves I should make with my money, Eric?
Yeah, so that's one of the critical things is I think people way, way too much depend on the stock market to always be good. And we know there's .com crashes. We know there's 08 crashes, COVID crashes, right? All these things. And so, you cannot depend 100% on the stock markets. So you want to have some foundational money, some money that can't go away, some money that's guaranteed. You want to have some money that's guaranteed ideally for the rest of your lifetime. And you also want to have some steady income in addition to the market money. So that'd be one of the things I would definitely recommend is start looking at those 2 other areas. Again, that's something we help with all of our clients here do is diversify that money out and make sure that you've got a plan that works in all conditions, all market conditions, because that's the only plan that you want.
Right, exactly. And so take us through your blueprint to worryless wealth, which is what you're offering today.
Yeah, so the blueprint basically covers the 5 critical areas: having an income plan, a written income plan that takes into account taxes, inflation, everything. Investment plan, how are those dollars set up? Are they in foundational, steady income, market money? Look at the taxes. When should you convert? When should you not? When should you be put money into what account? When should you take money out of which account? Look at the healthcare issues along the way. If you're retiring pre-65, post-65, long-term care. And then even legacy. Who's going to get your stuff at the end? What assets are better to leave behind? And all those types of things. So, that's one of the things that we've been doing here for a long time at Heckman Financial is creating that blueprint to worry less wealth. And, again, that's something we can create for you. There's no cost, no obligation. All you do is set up a 15 to 30-minute phone call. We'll talk about what's your situation, what concerns you have. And then from there, we can kind of build out that blueprint that you have already that you just don't know. And we'll tell you what's working and what areas you might have some issues in. And then we can figure out ways to address them. So, again, if you want to take advantage of that, all you have to do is set up that phone call. You can text the word VISIT to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Let Eric and his team at Heckman Financial help guide you to help you lay out your income for the rest of your life. You might be retired for 20, 30, maybe even 40 years, and he and his team are here to guide you. Here's another question, and this one has to do with Social Security, Eric. We're reaching into Eric's Wealth Creator Radio email bag, and here's one here. Could Social Security really keep up with the cost of living?
Supposedly the government says it will.
Yeah.
There was that huge increase for 2022 for inflation, but there's some years where there's been no increases and other ones where there have been in between. So, you can kind of count on anywhere from 1% to 3%, average increases, but Social Security is not that much money to start off with. I mean, for most people, that's not going to be a successful retirement if that's all you have. And so it's going to help. It's definitely not a bad thing, right? But it is something that you can't rely on Social Security, because Social Security is not going to be enough to have any sort of meaningful retirement or existence, I guess I would call it. So, you definitely have to have other assets that are, outpacing that and keeping up with inflation.
That worries me about baby boomers. That's my generation, my peers. And, I know, several years ago, you and I were always talking about how people just haven't saved enough. What are you seeing mostly lately on people my age who are getting ready to retire?
Well, obviously, most of the clients that people come to me, they have done some savings,
Okay.
so they have some built up, and they're trying to figure out, some obviously have done very well, some not as well, and so it's like, okay, well, where do you want to, how do you want to change stuff? Do you want to retire here, or you want to relocate, or do you want to work a few more years? But that's the beauty of our income plan, is we can figure that out ahead of time, then make those decisions with some knowledge. It's a lot worse when you're retired, then you're trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to live?
Yeah.
And, oh, shoot, I should have not retired for another couple of years.
Right.
So,
yeah. There you go.
You don't want to have that. Yeah. So you want to plan that ahead for sure.
Make sure you have a plan for your income. Yeah. Okay. Here's probably the last question I can get in for today. We're reaching into Eric's Wealth Creator Radio mailbag. This one is asking, can you explain what a qualified charitable distribution is? I've read a little bit about it. I'm still not sure exactly what it is and what the benefits are.
So a qualified charitable distribution, QCD. So this is basically for people who have that required minimum distribution. So, if you're hitting 72, the goofy thing about this law is when they changed it to 72, they did allow you to still donate your money at 70 and a half. I don't know who's going to do that really, because you don't have to take the money out. So why would you donate it unless you're being overly generous? But, the reality for most people when they're retired is most people can't itemize anymore. With a lot of the eliminations of the deductions and the, getting rid of the exemptions, but having the higher standard deduction, lots of times people are, when they're retired, they either have a small mortgage or no mortgage, so they can't have that mortgage write-off and other things. So they can't usually get a write-off for charitable donations. So what this does is this says, okay, well, yeah, you got to take out, there's so much money from your, your what we call your required minimum distribution, or RMD, from your retirement accounts. If you want, you can have that sent straight from whoever handles your IRA. So say if it's, Fidelity, for example, go from Fidelity straight to that charity. You don't pay tax on it, but it meets the definition of you taking the money out.
Awesome.
And the cool thing is it kind of barely shows up on your tax return. It shows up there for a second, but comes right off. So it's not income. It's not a write-off, but it's just not income. So say you had to take out $10,000 and instead you donated that. That's not $10,000 of income. That's not, stuff that you have to have a deduction for or anything else like that. You just don't pay the tax. So it's a great way to go. Again, that's one of those things where if you've got a plan, you work in that part of your plan, then it's easy to figure out how to donate that and when to do that. There's also things called donor advised funds that we use for people who have highly appreciated stock. That's a great way to compile all your donations in 1 year. So there's a lot of different ways that you can really get some great tax benefits if you do some planning with not only a financial advisor who knows the financial markets type of stuff and investment products, but really also knows the taxes. So, again, that's something we do here at Heckman Financial. So if you want to sit down with us and set up that blueprint to Worry Less Wealth, where we talk about that, income plan, investments, taxes, healthcare, legacy, all you have to do is text us the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
You're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. We'll be right back with the rest of our show.
Become a wealth creator today. Text visit to 800 800-454-1184 to schedule your 15-minute call with Eric and his team. That's visit to 800-454-1184.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman, who is president of Heckman Financial. All right, Eric, a lot of times we talk about challenges, risks that do exist in retirement. So I thought, it's time again for you to give us another example of maybe someone who's experienced one of those retirement obstacles, and we call it a financial fail. Okay, so give us a good example of what maybe not to do.
Well, just because we're in a kind of a shifting time frame, I think probably the biggest problem everybody gets is they always think what's happening now is going to be what's always happening. Probably the earliest in my career I had this eye-opener was probably back when I very first started, I was talking to somebody, and this was the, early 90s or mid-90s. And the guy said he took Social Security at 62 because his CDs were paying 7 and 8%. And so why wait for that extra money? Well, then, of course, what happened?
Right.
CDs kept going down and kept going down and kept going down. And then all of a sudden he was having less and less money year by year by year. And so one of the things I think right now we're having is, we've had this spike in interest rates, one that we've never seen really before. And there's a lot of talk and a lot of stuff showing that more than likely those rates are going to start trending back down again. Maybe not super fast, but they are going to start trending down. So now people were sitting there going, oh, well, yeah, I'm getting these, 4% CDs or 4.5%, and then I'll be all good. Well, what if rates go back down to 3 or 2 or something, and you're not getting quite as much money and you're counting on that money, right? So, that's, I think, one of the things that a lot of people kind of fall prey to is whatever the conditions are, they think they're going to always be that way. Obviously, in the 2010s, with the Fed printing money, all the large company stocks just kept going up and going up. Here, I'll just buy always dividend-paying stocks and I'll do great. Well, that changes, especially when the economy shifts and if we're more in recession. And also, as interest rates go higher, if a dividend-paying stock pays a dividend of 3%, and you're getting 4%, well, why get 3 if you can get 4 guaranteed, right? and unless you're thinking that stock's going to go up a bunch. So, there's a lot of different pressures going on. So don't think what's happening today is going to be happening for the next, 10, 20 years. And so, how can you protect yourself? Well, have a plan, right? Make sure this is going to work in all situations. If you want to get a little bit more data, you want to set up a time to talk, or if you just want to kind of look over some of the resources we have some great stuff on paying too much in tax and how to empower yourself. All you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or go directly to and download it at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Information provided during Wealth Creator Radio is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. Eric Heckman offers investment advisory services through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Any tax advice given as part of this presentation is not intended to be used and cannot be used by the taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any matter or transaction addressed herein. The views and opinions expressed in the program are not necessarily those of the radio station or its sponsors, and they should not construe as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision.